What is queerbaiting?
Let's be rational here. What are the pros? What are the cons?
The cons are that everyone will lose their job.
There's one celebrity that's very specifically known for doing it, and
I got dragged through the TikTok comments of hell for a little TikTok video that I did about a certain someone.
Exactly.
We'll get to that later. Queerbaiting, noun, is a marketing technique for fiction and entertainment in which creators hint at, but then do not depict, same-sex romance or other LGBTQ+ representation. The purpose is to attract or bait an LGBTQ+ or straight ally audience with the suggestion or possibility of relationships or characters that appeal to them. For money.
I'm at a New Year's party, and I'm with my friend Lee, and this guy kind of walks in, very mysterious, very handsome, kind of quiet, kept to himself, and throughout the night was kind of just like in and out of conversation. And at one point, he's like, "Hey, it was nice to meet you guys. Like, I'm gonna head out to some other party," and I was like,
"What party?
Who knows?
Can I go too?"
Exactly. Like, is it a circuit party? So I say, "Oh, well, let me get your social," and he literally, in front of everyone, wraps his hands around my shoulder and grabs my phone and types his social in and follows himself, and he leaves. And after the party, the next morning, I am talking with my friend Lee about it, and she's like infatuated. She was like, "He was so mysterious, he was so handsome, blah, 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 blah.
Dark, tall.
Exactly. And maybe queer baiting." And so we're looking through his social, and we're like, whoa, like, this is giving gay. Like, he's an actor, he was on Broadway, and that doesn't make you queer, but he was playing gay roles. And when you Google him, he's literally nude in one of the scenes, and it's you can find it. And looking through his social, it was giving queer. The comments, people are thirsting after him, the type of content that he's putting out, all of these things.
So you did a deep dive?
Yeah.
Like going through the comments, clicking their profile and going, oh.
Totally, and being like, oh, so like, at one point, I feel like me and Lee are like, trying to find whose team he's on so who can kind of go after him. But she's infatuated. She's like, I don't think he was gay. I think he's straight.
And you're like, no, he's totally gay.
Yes, he's totally gay. Like, this social's giving gay.
God,
gay,
ego
gay.
is so powerful.
But now they're kind of developing this relationship, and he is yet to follow her on Instagram and vice versa. And it was such a weird conundrum to us. We couldn't understand it.
Were they hooking up at this point?
I don't know if they were necessarily hooking up yet, but they were definitely...
She didn't tell you?
Well, it's like they were dating, I guess, so they were going on dates, but I don't know if they actually had sex or any type of sexual things yet. Like, they were very much dating. To the point where I remember we'd be out and she'd be like, because he would view all of my stories, like be one of the first person to view my stories, like my content, respond to it, whatever.
Yeah, that's very confusing.
Yes, and to the point where she'd be like, post me on your story. Do I look hot? Post me on your story. And I would.
Oh my God,
and he would like
desperation.
it. And he would like it. But all he was doing was queerbaiting. Not only was he queerbaiting online, he was queerbaiting in real life because he wanted the support of these people around him. And he still does it. Even his social is still very queer, and he was just in another movie where he literally plays a queer character. And so it's like his niche, right? He's found his acting niche, and it's queer characters, and he's not queer.
That we know of. Because I think this is kind of the underlying element of what queerbaiting is it rides this very nuanced little fence of like, maybe we don't know what this person's sexuality is, and it's not our business to know.
Right.
However, it's also an admission of, if I'm trying to pursue a career in entertainment, I don't have an edge to me as a straight-looking, perceived white male. And in a world that's flourishing with so many colors and kinds of people and all this kinds of activity that's happening around the world, I need to find an edge. And it's sad to hear, because whether this story is, this is a man who is struggling with his sexuality, who is fine with being perceived as queer and lives in that fluidity in New York City where maybe he feels safe, and now he's getting jobs and it's rewarding him financially, and it's rewarding him and is building his community. Either that's true or the inverse is true. That he actually is sort of living it, but yet he himself can't love himself.
Right.
And both of those outcomes are horrible.
You're right.
Imagine you're a musician, and before you, there's this whole community of musicians and community of people that are Smurfs. And the Smurfs have been prosecuted. They've had to build their own little communities, and they've had to build their own little Smurf bars where Smurfs are accepted and Smurfs are allowed to love other Smurfs and
Smurf around.
And Smurf around. But they have to stay in the Smurf community because
it's a safe space.
If they leave the Smurf space, they're prejudiced against. They lose family members, they lose friends, they lose job opportunities, they lose everything. So they have to stay in the little Smurf community. Then a musician comes along and starts painting himself blue, and he gets on stage and does his little songs, and everyone's like, oh my god, is he a Smurf? And he's like, I don't know, maybe. And then continues to rack it in millions and do shows all over the world, wins a Grammy, has a private jet, has a private life, is allowed to live and kind of wink at being a Smurf, but does nothing for the Smurf community, has never raised money for the Smurf community, has never said, you know, I kind of float in this weird Smurf realm, and this is normal and it's okay. Instead of even just saying that to a community that would actually listen to him,
right?
He just profits off of it and says nothing about it, and then moves on. Flies in his private jet with his private life to the next thing, and anyone that critiques him is outing someone that doesn't deserve to be outed, or is somehow, as some of the comments said, I'm causing bullying to the point to where people want to go up and shoot up gay bars. That was an actual comment.
It has to do with capital. And in my mind, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking like, could some men that are promoting their OnlyFans and promoting their Twitters be considered queerbaiting? And I think yes, but I also think no, right? If a straight man is willingly putting his body on display, and the queer community is going to that and purchasing that subscription, that's a little bit different. But like what Harry Styles is doing in terms of not physically drawing the line on where he stands in terms of what his sexuality is, we don't need to know about his personal relationships, but he needs to at least acknowledge that he is, like what you said, floating in the Smurfness of it all. But he hasn't even alluded to that. The only thing he's alluding to is grabbing a rainbow flag and wrapping it around himself when he rips his leather pants on tour.
You can't charge it to the card without paying the interest.
Period.
It's a nuanced thing. Well, I think that the tragic thing in all of that is that it could actually be someone that struggles with that, and they allow themselves to be adorned, and they feel comfortable living in that environment, and they are accepted for it, they're rewarded for it, it's monetized.
Yeah.
But when it actually comes to like the physicality of it, maybe he actually has tried. And the saddest thing to me in all of it is if he gets to that moment and he can't accept that maybe this is what his body wants. That's tragic.
That's tragic, but I also feel, even though I'm not friends with Lee anymore, I feel bad for her too.
Oh, I mean, to drag someone that, like, I will tell you, because as someone that like has slept with men, and I'm in a like all bisexuals, I'm in a heterosexual relationship. It's hard for the other person. And I remember the first time I dated a woman that was bisexual, she was cheating on her boyfriend with me. I was 20. So I was a stupid young man.
It's okay.
But she was into women too, and I always kind of thought like, I'm not only competing with other guys, I'm competing with other girls, and
right.
I can't compete with that.
Right.
I don't have those things.
Right.
So it's incredibly insecure.
Yeah.
And it's about communication. So he must not be communicating like, oh no, hey, look, like, this is just how I am. It's like who I work with. It's the roles that I'm in.
I think that is what it is. I think that their relationship has developed to where they did get to that point where he was like, it's just kind of like my niche, and this is like, and that he maybe has gone on a date with a guy and maybe tried, but either way, he's landing these roles because of that first big role he got on Broadway as a queer person, and is now falling into that niche. And then looking at the comments again, you're just like, all these guys are thirsting after him, being like, you are so attractive and mysterious and all of these things, and he's getting more things.
It's working.
It's working.
That's
he's monetizing it.
That's why people do it, is because it works. I think it's point of origin.
Yeah.
If you are a woman who, which we all know, are insanely discriminated against and have been for literally hundreds of thousands of years.
Totally.
If they're trying to use every single tool that they can, if a straight white male who's been afforded all of these privileges starts using tools, is that okay? What if they're delivering a product that queer people are okay with, and they say, hey, you know what? We give the thumbs up to this. I don't care if he's actually gay. Even if he's pretending. I like it. I want it. It's nuanced.
It's so nuanced, and it's like so... It's like, is queerbaiting bad? Is queerbaiting real? Is queerbaiting...
The answer to that is with a question.
Right.
Who is it hurting?
And that goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, because when you asked me when was the first time you feel like you experienced queerbaiting, it was like that moment with Dan and Lee where I finally like was realizing it after I had been stewing over it. But queerbaiting's probably been happening to me my entire life, because I always like any glimpse of something that doesn't fall in my understanding and realm of like what a straight guy does, I'm like, oh, this is for me, and I'm gonna follow it. And I think that's why it's like there's no like real, I can't answer that. Like, I will follow a guy just because he doesn't have his shirt on and like is telling some jokes, and like he could be absolutely queerbaiting me, but I don't even care.
You fell for the trap.
Right, but then I want representation online. Like, he's giving me nuances of queerness, and I have never had that. So even though I'm being queerbaited, at least someone's putting some type of queer content out there.
Well, and that's the argument that some people have, had conversations with me about when it comes to Harry Styles. Because they're like, well, isn't it that amazing that a white male is able to show all these people who otherwise wouldn't follow a queer person of color, or a queer indigenous person, or a queer trans person.
Right.
They will listen to someone like him, and now he's letting them know, hey, this is actually really normal and it's cool and it should be celebrated. And to that I say, that's total fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is, this can only exist if we pass the torch to another white male to finally get it across the finish line. Yeah. And that's insane. That's insane to me.
Yeah.
To me, Harry Styles is like the 3-year-old little brother that you have, and all of your sisters dress him up, and like it's super cute, and he's sitting there and they take a video and he does a little thing and everyone's like, oh my god, it's so cute and amazing. And it's like, no, he did nothing.
No.
He just sat there, and a team dressed him up and thought it was cute, and they put it out in the world, and the video went viral, and he just shows up and wears whatever they tell him, and he says whatever they want him to say.
Yeah. But God forbid if I would have put on a dress, gotten filmed doing it, people are calling me a faggot and calling me like literally all
Sam Smith did it.
Yep.
And got ridiculed.
Yes.
An actual queer fat person.
Yeah.
Went out there, looked amazing.
Yes, slayed.
That song was so fucking good, and honestly, that was one of the best music videos that I've seen in so long.
Yep.
It's incredible.
Well, I mean, the Billy Porter of it all, too. That Vogue interview that he did, it's like, Billy Porter has paved the way for queer fashion and wearing dresses and representing queer people in the media. And Billy Porter, if anyone should have been the first person on the cover of Vogue wearing a dress, it should have been him.
That's why I think he was so triggered and said that.
Yeah.
Which ultimately, this shows the power of the Harry Styles brand. And again, I'm telling you, even us talking about this, we're going to get a lot of slack and hits for this.
Come for us.
I would not invite that.
Don't come for us. Actually, just come on me.
But I think he was so triggered by that because he felt like either he or someone like him should have been, and like that this was probably the worst person to put in a dress, because it's like, how dare you celebrate someone for wearing a dress when the rest of us have been shamed for wearing one.
And what I think even more so is we live in New York City and we are surrounded by so much culture and community of nicheness that is not represented in a lot of other places. And it's almost like Harry Styles doing that in Queerbaiting is middle America's understanding and light and into what the queer community looks like.
It's their acceptable version, right?
Precisely.
It's like when you go to Thailand and you actually have pad thai and it has the shrimp heads on it and there's lots of umami flavors and it's really intense and it's amazing. Please go to Thailand, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But then when you go to, let's say, like Paducah, Kentucky, and you go get a pad thai and it's like this crappy stir-fried, too much soy sauce.
Yep.
Like the shrimps
version
are frozen and shitty, and there's no shrimp head or even tail on it. They're totally deveined, and like it's they're okay with this version of it.
Totally.
And for that reason, I think Harry Styles is acceptable and okay, and in some weird way it is helping advance and bring up like a rising tide lifts all boats.
Right.
So I'm fine with it, and it still deserves critique.
Right. And I think that's the same thing with the relationship with like Dan and Ali.
Yeah, it's like this person's doing it and maybe they're confusing some people along the way. They're financially benefiting from it. It may hurt the community as far as like, well, this person's getting the role over this person who's actually that. But but then the conversation becomes like, well, okay, well, what is actual?
Right.
We can't know.
Yep.
And so it's funny because at the end of the day, for me, queerbaiting, it's like they're cheapening it by putting on this little dress and this little fake thing. But how much is it really hurting? I don't know.
Right. And I think maybe it just hurts us because we are a part of the community more.
And maybe we're jealous because they're succeeding and we're not.
Exactly. Cut.